You're a pro. Arva, that was mesmerizing. Thank you so much. And now, please join me in welcoming Tim Armstrong to our pulpit.
So that was very inspiring. I appreciate that. I can remember 20 years ago down to the Swanee River music festivals with my wife and little kids, and hearing the wonderful Celtic music that you played for us down there, and different music. Was just what a blessing to the community, a one-man orchestra. I just love it. I love it. I appreciate the invite here for your summer series, Provoking Themes, Celebrating the Earth, and I am excited about sharing about how we have helped the community create Gardens of Eden, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let's go to the first slide. So this is the entrance to my farm, so I haven't always been the plant guy. I know Hope met me. I came to her yard and helped her create a little Garden of Eden in her yard, and I did that for lots of folks. I did help create Very Good Farms for North Florida School of Special Education. I have 3 boys, and the oldest of my 3 boys has Down syndrome. And so I started volunteering at North Florida School of Special Education, and ended up seeing how much the kids there really enjoyed working with nature and working with plants. And I approached the board of directors and asked them about creating an agribusiness for them at the campus here in Arlington. And we created Very Good Farms, and I managed that project for 10 years. My bio was incorrect. I'm no longer managing that project. 3 years ago, what I decided to do was to take my farm, which at that time had grown from a business to where we were growing plants and bringing them to the farmer's market. People knew me from the Beaches Green Market. That's where Brian knew me from. For 10 years, I was a vendor at the Beaches Green Market. I grew plants out at my farm, and me and the kids would take them to the market. And it was my way of sharing with the community and also sharing with the kids, you know, teaching them about good food, work ethics, giving them a place to have community at the local green market. And when my kids got grown up, my youngest goes to college next week. I'm super excited about that. I decided, well, why am I doing all this work? It's not like a big money business for me or anything. I was actually, as a career in industrial management, I spent 20 years with the steelworkers, and that was my career. So everything I've done beyond that for the last 20 years has been really my way of just staying busy and trying to give back to the community some. So what I decided to do was to turn EatYourYardJax into a nonprofit, because what was feeding my heart and making me continue to do it was we had started doing a lot of school groups at the farm, and you're going to learn a little bit about that. We had started allowing the community to come in and shop at the farm, and created a farm where people can actually see how you can create your own little Garden of Eden. Because you can go down to Lowe's and buy maybe a peach tree, right? You know, but you can actually pick a peach off the tree if it's peach season, and I'll share one with you at my farm. You can actually see how big a peach tree looks. You know, you can see all the plums. And so we use that in our school groups, and we use that in our sharing experience with individuals as they come to the farm. So that's me and my business. If you want, but I want to tell you about how to create your Garden of Eden a little bit more. And if you want to learn more about me and my business, let's go to the next slide. You can check out a podcast on Sustainable Jax, a really good podcast available on Apple and Spotify. You can go to the next slide. We also have American Dream TV did a really good series on us recently. You can check that out. You can go to the next slide. We just did a presentation at the Farmstead Conference, and you'll find us all over town. If you go to our Instagram page or website, you'll find where we're at, where we're talking, where we're vending, places like this here today. Why don't you go to the next slide? So there's what really feeds my heart. Bringing little kids into the farm. So this is a little kid discovering the joy of vermiculture, discovering the joy of worms and growing worms and why you want to grow worms in your garden. Let's go to the next slide. So see, these are some of the benefits of worm castings. It helps the tilth of your soil. It reuses waste. So 1 pound of worms, and this is a stat that, you know, kids are just astounded by. 1 pound of worms can eat 1 pound of garbage in 1 week. So we live in a city of 1 million people. Think if 1 million people took all their domestic waste, you know, the recyclable waste, all your kitchen scraps and things like that, and turned it into garden gold, how much would be deferred out of our landfills, and how much fertilizer and soil could be generated and put back into our yards and into our gardens instead of having to run down and buy soil. Many people ask me why my relentless pursuit of teaching people to eat their yard, and that little clip was a good reason. Let's go to the next slide. So what we encourage at the farm is not that maybe you look at this and you'll say, oh, wow, that's pretty jungly looking. And if you come to my farm, you may say that. You may say, well, that's pretty jungly looking. And there's some truth to that. But it doesn't have to be all such. But by having mulched pathways, those worms are happy and healthy. And not only the worms, but other beneficial insects are down there breaking all that wood chips and waste up. So it can be wood chips, it can be leaves out of your yard, it can be leaves out of your neighbor's yard. But by creating pathways through your yard with chips like you see in this area, and creating little oases in your yard. So this campus is a great example. I walked around the campus of the church prior, and you know, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I think we all have some very great things to contribute. Let's go to the next slide. So when I talk to people about their yards, I talk to them about zoning their yards out. And so we look at in zone 1, zone 1 is closest to your house. And so you want the things that you're using most. When I go to a person's house and talk to them about how to arrange their garden, the first thing I want to know is, where's your kitchen? And where's your back door leading out of the kitchen area? Because that's where you're gonna need to put your most commonly used herbs and plants. Because if you have to go out to the back 40 to get them, you know, you're less inclined to use them on a daily basis. And so in zone 1 and 2, you have your row crops and most of your herbs and things like that. And then in zones 3 and 4, further back out in your yard, you have your shrubs, your berry bushes. And then as you go out to the perimeters of the yards, you have your wildlife areas. So just native plants and areas that you've left for the wildlife. A lot of times people come to my yard and or farm, and they look at the perimeter of the garden. They go, oh my goodness, look at all that Biden's alba, all those weeds. But you know, Biden's alba is a medicinal, it's a edible, and it's a tremendous pollinator crop. So here's a common weed that you could easily have on the perimeter of your property to use for the wildlife. And it's super important to be able to have that wildlife habitat, because those the pollinators are also going to pollinate your garden and your fruit trees, and that's what's going to make your endeavors fruitful. Let's go to the next slide. So this is an excellent example of like really going to the up level, but in my view, this is as pretty as any landscaped yard that you could potentially come up with. And so, you know, I think by thinking beyond our normal postage stamp yards that we see going through neighborhoods, that, you know, we can really expand our horizons as far as food and food security. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a good example of creating a little Eden in a little nook. So I actually helped a family in Atlantic Beach creating a little nook like this between where the houses were super close together. So it doesn't take that much, just a little forethought on your part and a little creativity. Like, look at this apple tree in the left-hand corner. So that's an Espalier apple, and then there's a cruciferous, some kind of collard. I see some marigolds in there. So you've got beauty and function married together, and this is the way that you can create your own little Garden of Eden in your backyard. Let's go to the next slide. So this is my front yard, and you know, maybe it's not perfect. But I have created a perennial peanut yard instead of using grass. Why would we want to do something like that? Because I mow this perennial peanut maybe once or twice a year. Because perennial peanut only gets about 4 to 6 inches. This is my youngest son, James, who I'm sending to college next week, eating perennial peanut flowers in my front yard. So even though he thinks I'm not cool anymore, you know, he was relaying at dinner the other night how he and a couple of friends were walking down the street in Atlantic Beach, and he seen some perennial peanut growing in the median there, and he picked a few flowers, and his friends were like, "Oh no, what are you doing?" You know, but you know, so he shared that experience. And then if you look and the very outside, that large tree that you see is moringa. So moringa is a leaf crop superfood from Africa. So moringa has 7 times more vitamin C than orange, 3 times more iron than spinach, 4 times more potassium than bananas, grows 30 feet tall in my yard, and it is a leaf crop that we could really save a lot of people in the world by introducing them to these types of plants. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm encouraged that a little bit of what I'm trying to preach and what a lot of people are trying to preach is taking hold. I know in the San Marco area, I see a lot of the medians now are planted with perennial peanut. That makes me feel really good. So this La Salle swell is actually at the library in San Marco. And when I seen this, I was just blown away, you know, and this is the foresight that we need to encourage our city managers to consider, you know, using organic and responsible solutions to our problems. Let's go to the next slide. So a swell is basically just a little shallow ditch. So you ask about, nope, not yet. Back up. It's all right if you don't. So this is our mission and vision statement for our little nonprofit at the farm. So we're trying to teach this next generation and the general population at large about growing healthy food and how you can do it. So next slide. So we're doing that by encouraging people to take advantage of the natural living web instead of pouring chemicals on that and going in a adverse direction, using nature and its ability to function and working in conjunction with nature. Next slide. I'd like to take you on a little tour of my farm. This is I would love to take you on a tour of the farm, similar to I would a customer or a tour group. This is one of my favorite plants. This plant actually sent me to Italy. This is the plant that I did a presentation for at the Slow Food International Conference in Turin, Italy in 2014. I was the Slow Food First Coast representative at the international conference, and this is Yupon holly, and the Indians in this area use this as a caffeinated beverage. I'd like to thank DroneWorks for that great drone work that they donated to the farm, and also Rayonier Corporation, who was the corporate group that was out here during that particular video and have been a supporter of the farm for the last few years. Without that kind of support, we would not be able to stay in business. So this is a little map of our farm showing what we've got going on. We've got 2 greenhouses. We've got a little mushroom walk. We do mushroom classes. We've got an education facility where we just had a summer camp this 2 weeks ago, and that was just very heartwarming to see all the kids. And we've taken a little bit of the grant money from Rayonier and actually have built a new meeting room and more formal education room behind our store and bathroom facility. Let's go to the next slide. So this is Cherokee Rose, and Cherokee Rose is state of Georgia's state flower. So it was introduced in the early exploration period, and the American Indians knew a lot about using plants. This is one of the books that I use as reference books, but rose hips are super high in vitamin C. You can make rose hip tea, you can make rose hip jelly, and these are just some of the kinds of things where we can use nature as healing purposes. Next slide. So this is me with Roselle hibiscus, the red zinger hibiscus. This is one that Celestial Seasonings made a fortune out of. So if you come to our Persimmon Festival, which is our biggest fundraising festival, it's the first Sunday of November every year. This is our 4th year coming up. One of the free things that you get at the festival is red zinger tea. And so the leaf of the red zinger plant, this Roselle hibiscus, is called sorrel, Jamaican sorrel, and it's used in the islands. So this is a plant that can be used in places of the world where it's very difficult to grow most common plants. So introducing these plants, these easy-to-grow plants, highly nutritious plants to the community is one of the things that we're doing. Next slide, please. This is another healing plant. This is one that you'll hear Dr. Oz talking about all the time. We encourage healing plants a lot in the nursery. So not only are these functional, so this is a culinary plant and a healing plant. We also use them for healing people, just as you've got the meditation walk going through the woods, you've recognized the ability of nature to heal people. That's one of the things that we have really tried to hone in on. My experience at the school, I really noticed how much those kids, got a lot of benefit from being introduced to foods that they grew. So if they grew that blueberry or they grew that plant, they were like very happy to eat it, and that was one of the ways that I love to share. I actually took the step and took some of our money and sent a young therapist through University of Florida's horticulture therapy program, and that's one of the new functions that we're working with, and we're bringing that into some of the school groups. And we were published in the American Horticulture Therapy magazine's journal recently about what we're doing at the farm. And so it's just one of the things that we've got going on. Next slide, please. This is another of our healing plants. This is comfrey. Comfrey is a bioaccumulator and a healing plant. So bioaccumulator, I mean it can take minerals deep from within the soil, pull it up, hold it in its leaves, and you can use those leaves as fertilizer on your plant. I plant it as a companion plant around a lot of my fruit trees because its wide leaves discourage weeds from growing up around the plant and also shade the roots of the plant. And then as a medicine, the leaves have historically been used for conditions like broken bones and sprained bones to accelerate healing. It's been used for skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. So here's a plant that's super easy to grow. It's a fertilizer plant. It's a fodder plant. We grow a lot of plants and encourage folks to grow a lot of plants as fodder plants for their domestic chickens and rabbits and turkeys. And so this is comfrey. Next slide, please. Edible bamboos are one of the plants that you'll see a lot of at our farm. We have the bamboos that we sell meet 3 criteria. They're clumping, they're edible, and they're regionally appropriate. So there's lots of bamboos in the world. And we created a YouTube channel. It has about 30 videos on there. Maybe it'll have 31 after this one, right? Has about 30 videos on there, and each episode I try to introduce you to another one of my favorite plants. And so if you get an opportunity, it's at EatYourYardJax on YouTube. So that EatYourYardJax is our Instagram page, our website, our YouTube channel, our TikTok channel, and please check those out. Next slide. This is me creating a little healing garden at the farm. I also have helped churches with gardens. I don't know if you guys have seen the Church of Messiah on San Jose Boulevard, but they have an excellent biblical garden. One of the principals that has helped the church with that garden is actually on our board of directors at the EatYourYardJax, and I'm excited about working with churches and schools and creating edible learning experiences. Also, 2 of the Jewish centers on San Jose have also used the farm as sources for their trees that they've used in learning gardens. So growing plants is certainly nothing new to Florida. This is one of Lemoy's who was the French explorers that discovered America and brought it to Europe. This is the Tamacoan Indians planting corn, and so getting back to the earth is really our roots, and I think that connection has been lost, and so that's one of the things that we're doing is encouraging getting back to that. So I took this slide on one of my trips to Peru. This is Machu Picchu, and it was just amazing to me to know that this growing area is thousands of years old, and just showing with some creativity They've taken a mountainous area that would normally be thought of as non-agrable at all, and for thousands of years have been growing not only llamas and other animals, but also growing crops. Next slide. This is some of the Indians that I met at Huachicusco, which is near Machu Picchu, processing pigeon peas, one of my favorites. Next slide.
Double. It's easier to get one marshmallow off. Hold on, let's shoot at the same time. Okay. We hope you feel better, Jace. Look out. Bro, you're in it. Pine cone.
So it probably will have size.
It's this part when you touch this one.
Well, it didn't break where we scored.
So there's a little example. This was 2 years ago, summer camp. So we're really trying to do our part from saving this next generation from nature deficit disorder. This is The Last Child in the Woods. I don't know if you guys or any of you read this, but great read. You know, it's my way of trying to give back to the community. And this is a quote by Coretta Scott King: the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. And I can see that here at the church, and I'm so glad that you guys allowed me this time to share what I'm trying to do with the community, and for me to see what you guys are doing with the community. And that's what's going to make this world a better place, is all of us working together and making this happen. And I appreciate you guys taking the time and letting me share with you.